Good citizens of the Reject Nation, you spoke, I listened. After that monumental villains list, it is time to dive into some heroes. Now, we cut this off at 75, a whopping 75 heroes. This could have easily been like 150, 200. Honorable mention goes out to the Howling Commandos, to Hogun, to Hank and Janet themselves. There's so many heroes in the MCU at this point that I had to limit this to 75 because it could have gone on forever. But here we have 75 of the greatest heroes in the MCU ranked. And right after this break, I'll tell you how we decided to rank them. But first, do leave a like, comment, let me know what else you want to see. I made this one because I saw everyone say they wanted heroes lists, so here we are. Let me know what else you want to see, and do all the YouTube things. Share this with your friends. Let them know. I will say before we get into this, I am a little under the weather still, so if there's a slight energy lull, I do apologize for all of you that like me at 11. I'm still like a 9, but I'm only human. All right, let's get into it. All right, so to make this list for me, I'm not going to lie, this took about 2 hours to decide who was in what order, which heroes I wanted to include, which ones wouldn't make the cut. It was a long process, but I ended up breaking it down to 4 key attributes. One was their transformation from the comic, and that's what's going to make this list a little more unique. This is still based within the MCU, but if a character is between like 50 and 49, that's what's going to edge them over just a little bit, is how well I think they made them improve from the comic book. Another thing was the authenticity to their MCU arc. How authentic one character feels from their movie to a crossover movie to a team-up movie, all those things are very important. So their authenticity of their arc within the MCU. Another thing I had in mind was how compelling they are, how much you want them on screen, how entertaining they are, how much you feel for them, how much you feel like them. Their authenticity to the character and their overall development was very important. And lastly, heroism itself. These are heroes. So I took heroic attributes into account. So those are the 4 main categories: how heroic, how authentic, how it translates from the comic, and their overall arc in the MCU and how much that felt true. Let's get into it. Coming in at number 75 is Gilgamesh. Now, Gilgamesh is from the Eternals, a movie I espouse often. I love this movie very, very much. But what makes Gilgamesh stand out is in a movie with an ensemble cast, he's especially heroic in the way he handles not just the macro of the world, the catastrophizing, the global stuff, but his relationship with Thena. I love how contained that relationship is. I love how human that relationship is. And I love what selflessness looks like for Gilgamesh, and that's what makes a hero, and that's a really unique relationship. Really love this character, really love how he's used. Number 75. Coming in at number 74 is Fendral. Now, he had the deficit of being recast between his first and second appearance, but both actors, including the leading man performance of Zachary Levi, were very charming and very intricate and very fun. There was a specificity to this playfulness, this Robin Hood-esque character that I did think elevated the Thor films. I wish we had a little bit more of him. I wish we got to learn a little bit more about this character besides just being part of the Warriors 3, but I do think that bond, what that brought out in Thor, was very, very useful, and I wish we could have seen more to really flesh out Thor, but for now, he's 74. Coming in at number 73, and the highest of the Warriors 3, I did mention Hogun was an honorable mention at the top of this video. He'd be like 78 if we did 100 of these, but we've got number 73, Volstagg, as played by Ray Stevenson. Now, this man is a powerhouse. He is our Punisher at times. He is also usually a villain at other times. He's the villain of RRR. This man is everywhere, and he brings so much levity to this role. Very intense actor playing a comedic role, almost Santa Claus-esque. I love the beauty of this comedy. I love the physicality of this comedy. I love that every time Volstagg is on screen, I want to know more. He's also someone who sacrifices himself, and that is about as heroic as it gets, while being a force of levity, while also being a force of power. Like, I would fear this character, this god of hunger and war. Volstagg's awesome. Check him out. Number 73. Number 72. Now, this one might be a bit lower than a lot of people would prefer, but there's a very specific reason for this, and that is going to be Pepper Potts as Rescue. And that is mainly because her 2 appearances as Rescue, as opposed to being as Pepper Potts, felt very incomplete. It felt like there were scenes missing. It felt like there were edits. I loved when we had moments of heroism from Pepper Potts, because the Pepper Potts-Tony Stark relationship is foundational to my love of a very high up number on this list, Tony Stark. I love what Pepper Potts represents, and I love what she does for the Stark Foundation. I love her keeping Tony in line. I love her being able to outsmart Tony on many, many terms and ways. but I don't like that as soon as she put on the suit, it kind of went away. I did feel like all of the intelligence and capability and resourcefulness and all those things that make Pepper so interesting, as soon as the Iron Suit's on, it's another Iron Man. And that puts her pretty low because that's not the character. So Rescue's pretty low for me, while Pepper Potts is high. Gotta land here at number 72. Number 71 is a character I have not understood, and that has been very hard for me in this age of comedy in the Marvel era. This is a character so many people love, and I don't get it. He's funny. I laugh. I don't really invest. And a lot of people really had a whole thing to say, especially in Love and Thunder. That is Korg. I don't get the Korg thing. He's perfectly fine. And that is why he's 71. Perfectly fine. Korg. Coming in at number 70 is a character that I expect to elevate as soon as her show comes out. This is a character I want to see more of, so I get the feelings I want to get. This is a character from David Mack, one of my favorite comic creators of all time, and I have not felt this from the MCU version of the character yet, and that is Echo. Echo is a fascinating character in the comic books. Echo is so resourceful and enigmatic and interesting and makes you lean into the character and want to learn more about her backstory and all these things. And I felt like the way she was used as supporting character and the way she was used in Hawkeye was almost like a henchman, and that didn't feel right, didn't feel authentic. It felt like she's meant to be so much more, and I didn't get that from her yet. The show coming out is going to flesh this character out. She will not live this low, certainly by this time next year, 2 years from now, but for now, with the portrayal we got so far, much like in my villains list, Kingpin from the Netflix series is one of my favorite villains of all time, hard stop. Kingpin in the MCU, a la Hawkeye, is one of my lower because of the disappointment between the duality of those characters, much like Echo is going to be lower here. Echo is landing at number 7. Coming in at number 69 is Icarus. Now, Icarus is in the Eternals, and Icarus stands out as the Superman-esque character. And in an age of Invincible and The Boys and all of these dark Superman archetypes, Icarus has a tall order to do. Luckily, he's played by Richard Madden, so he can carry that. That said, the twist did feel fairly telegraphed from earlier on in the film. Luckily, this movie has a lot of twists. This movie has a lot of turns. This movie goes a lot of places, but I did feel like Icarus was definitely a character I would have loved to see more of before the twist, and I do feel like it was a little bit expected because of this age of dark Superman. So I enjoyed the performance. I liked the portrayal. I understood, most importantly, where he was coming from. He was following orders. He was super cop. He was a cop just doing what he was told, and that did make him captivating. That's why he's not lower, but the twist being so telegraphed keeps him on the lower side at number 69. Number 68, likewise with a twist feeling a bit telegraphed, and that unfortunately shortchanging the heroism and shortchanging the character, I'm going to go with Sharon Carter. Now, Sharon Carter totally works in Winter Soldier. Sharon Carter totally works throughout Civil War. But by the time we get to where her arc goes as the power broker, I'm a lot less invested in the character. And that's not to fault the actor. Just like none of these other performances are bad. It felt like it was to serve the plot, not to serve the character. And sometimes when you're making this giant tapestry of the MCU, some things have to serve the plot. If it shortchanges the character, that's so be it. So unfortunately, for now, and I'm hoping this changes with Thunderbolts, Sharon Carter, number 68. I'm hoping to see Agent 13 evolve. Agent 13 would be rad to see. I'd like to see Agent 13 more than the Power Broker. We'll see. 68, Sharon Carter. Number 67, Red Guardian. I love David Harbour. I love him a lot. He's fun. He's interesting. He's a delight to interview. He's a good man. I like David Harbour in the MCU. I don't, however, see where the Red Guardian's going to go as being important enough for the Thunderbolts. He was a very fun supporting character in Black Widow. That's what I thought his purpose was going to stay. The opening of the film is why he's as high as he is, but that's not when he's Red Guardian. That's when he's playing the spy father of Black Widow and Yelena. I want to get more of that paternal nature and more of the conflict. I definitely by the end felt the paternal conflict between betraying his daughters, but I want to see more of that. I do want to see him as more of a hero. I do think we're going to get that from Thunderbolts. He's in a tricky spot because he doesn't have a lot of screen time yet. So for now, Mr. David Harbour as Red Guardian is number 67. All right, number 66 is not really a hero at all, but I felt like I had to include him because I think to some people's eyes, he is a hero, and his captivating nature put him this high on the list. Remember, that was one of my factors. What makes them unique is also part of what makes them heroic in this judgment. Is U.S. Agent. Now, U.S. Agent is a fascist following orders, much like Icarus. So they're heroes of their own mind. No one acts out of villainy, but he's definitely done things wrong. But he oftentimes showed that his heart was in the right place as far as his belief. Like, as long as he believed that would help people, he was doing it for helping people. That's a hero. But he hasn't done a lot right yet. So it's really tricky. I love the conflict I feel about this character. He is just following orders. He's following government orders, and that's that conflict from Winter Soldier. You know, Cap, Steve Rogers, doesn't just follow orders blindly, and that's what causes the conflict that leads to Civil War from Winter Soldier. U.S. Agent would, and he would do it from the right place for the wrong reasons. Very tricky character. Very excited to see more of him in Thunderbolt. We've got Mr. John Walker at number 66. All right, number 65 is going to be quick because we don't really know them as a hero yet, but they deserve an honorable mention because I love them dearly. They're not a hero yet because they're kind of a punk. They cause a lot of problems. They're a bit of a nuisance, but every time they're on screen, I'm so happy. They're usually dancing. This is Baby Groot / Teenage Groot. About to get into some heroism. We've seen the Guardians of the Galaxy 3 trailer. We're going to see what Swole Groot brings. Remember, Groot OG and this Groot, separate Groots. Baby Groot has caused more problems than good so far, but he's adorable and he has done some heroic acts, so I gotta put him a little higher than a lot of these people. Baby Groot, I love you. Number 64, and one of my biggest surprises of the MCU shows. I did not expect this character. This is a very deep cut character in a deep cut show. I've always considered Moon Knight to be, you know, a C-list character I never thought would get the time of day. And then Scarlet Scarab, our number 64. Scarlet Scarab, this actress, every time she was on screen, I was so enamored and fascinated, and I wanted to know more about the relationship. And I was more intrigued by the dissociative identity of all of the Oscar Isaacs because of her performance. And then when you give her the full superhero treatment, she gets those awesome wings. We get a little bit of action from her in heroic character. We got lots of action from her just as a civilian. Badass performance, a lot of great stunt work, a lot of practical work, and earned her wings, earned the heroism. Really enjoyed this take. I want to see more from Scarlet Scarab. She's number 64. Number 63 is higher than I would have expected, but I couldn't think of a place to put him on the list any lower. And it's because of the limited screen time. I was just so impressed at what he was able to do so quickly. This is a character that I don't particularly love from the comic books. I don't mind him, but I'm never invested. Like, I read his comics, and I bought his miniseries, but I wasn't like, this guy's my guy. That's Black Bolt. I was so impressed at what Anson Mount did with Black Bolt in very little screen time and no dialogue. Obviously, he's Black Bolt. He can't speak. This man emanated regality. He emanated power. He emanated an interest. You wanted to know more about him. He took out Thanos, like, in the matter of minutes. I loved that Elseworld scene, or that alternate universe scene of him on the moon. That beautiful Illuminati shot of all of them taking out Thanos is so powerful. And he's the only member of the Illuminati that makes this list because what he was able to do with so little was so impressive. And it's the character I want to see more of if we do an Elseworld what if jump into any of those other multiverses. Really liked Anson Mount as the Great Black Bolt, number 63. All right, we got a newcomer here coming in at number 62. She just made her debut in Wakanda Forever, and she is about to get her own series in Ironheart. Ever charming, ever captivating, Dominique Thorne as Ironheart. Now, she has a lot to balance. She is a legacy character in that she puts on an Iron Man suit. They even call it out in the movie. She has to be witty and charming and different. She's got to have a different kind of street smarts than anybody we've met before. She's from a very rough neighborhood and then MIT, so she's got to deal with that polish versus street. There's so much to this character, and I think they nailed it. I personally am a big fan of Brian Michael Bendis' Ironheart. I personally think Dominique Thorne, the moment she walked on stage at Comic-Con, I saw Ironheart. Very excited to see more from her. She, without, again, much screen time, already made a great impression. She's number 62, Ironheart. Coming in at number 61, we just got her as a hero, and prior, we'd loved her as Jane Foster. That is the mighty Thor. Now, this one's tricky because I love Natalie Portman so much. It's hard to separate my problems with writing and directing from the performance. I think she is a comedic powerhouse. If you've never seen any of her SNL work, but some of the comedy stylings of the movie themselves didn't suit the MCU or Natalie Portman. That said, I was so invested in Jane Foster that I would have rather had a Jane Foster movie. I would have rather had the battle with cancer. I would have rather had, scenes of her deciding to pick up the hammer again. I would have rather had her hero's journey, her discovering these powers. And instead, it felt like, obviously, we've had Thor for 4 movies, so we're following his journey, and she was popping up in moments as this new character. And yeah, we'd lived with Jane Foster, but I wanted more Mighty Thor. And the fact that I wanted more Mighty Thor puts her pretty high on this list because I do think Jane Foster and Natalie Portman did what they could with the time they had. Mighty Thor. All right, number 60. We got a guy that shouldn't have died. We got a fella that was taken out too soon. I don't know if it was a personal vendetta from Joss Whedon or what, but Quicksilver getting shot is preposterous. What Aaron Taylor Johnson was able to do in his charm, in his chemistry with his sister, you heard me, in his ability to make every scene with him be different and unique and go up against an already in theaters Quicksilver. Remember the Days of Future Past, remember the other X-Men movie came out right around the same time as this, so he had a very tall order. Evan Peters brought this very different Quicksilver, and this was an Avengers Quicksilver, and it still felt unique and special. I didn't love the outfit, but I loved the performance. I loved the heroism. I loved the sacrifice. I loved that Pietro got to be a bit of a punk, but also a hero, and that's the character. Had a great time with him. Died too soon. Quicksilver, Pietro, 60. Number 59, we are going back to the world of Eternals with Phastos. Now, Phastos is a key anchor in this giant film. Phastos is the one that makes the family feel like a family, and that's in him having a family. And I loved how immediately I loved him and his family. I was so enamored by what Brian Tyree Henry brought. He's the inventor, and he invents this nuclear family, and I love that. I love that we immediately want to know more about how much influence he's had in humanity. I love how immediately his selflessness goes against all of his programming and everything he's been told to do. I love that he's always been about us and been about the underdog, been about the little guy. I am about Phastos as a character, and definitely in this delivery, definitely this performance. I think Brian Tyree Henry was a standout in a very stacked cast, and I think Phastos was the heart of a very, very beautiful family that is the Eternals. Love this movie. Love Phastos. Coming in at number 58, sticking with Eternals, and this is my second favorite Eternal. Yes, there's like 5 of the 9 Eternals on this list. I love that movie, but this one is so important to me on the macro scale because we look at heroes and we think of heroes as being, infallible in a way. We look at heroes as unbreakable. It's one of the reasons I don't identify with Superman as much. I like when heroes have flaws that I can identify with, and I never thought we'd get a character identifying with mental health so directly as Thena. Thena's mental health was her strength in the film, and that was beautiful. If she didn't have those mental struggles, she wouldn't have been able to see what she saw, and that wouldn't have made the Eternals aware of the truth. Sometimes what people perceive as a weakness is a strength, and sometimes what people perceive as mental health is their greatest strength. This character is very important to me as someone who struggles with mental health. This character is very important to me as someone who thinks we need more representation of characters like this on screen, and as someone who loves that Angelina Jolie chose to play a character like this, to put her name behind something like this, to bring that movie star bravado, gusto, gravitas, whatever you want to call it. Angelina Jolie as Thena is a really important character and a very powerful character. Loved her to death. She's high up on this list. Number 57 is Jack Russell, aka Werewolf by Night. Werewolf by Night is a fascinating character because you've got a mercenary thrown in over his head at the top, but then you add all the supernatural elements. And particularly in this case, in this adaptation, you do all this in 47 minutes. You're empathetic to this character right away. You're sympathetic throughout the entire transformation, and every time he's on screen, you feel like you're learning more of his history just through his eyes. You feel like you're getting more of the character every single moment without gluttonous expositionary dialogue. There's so much going on under the surface and in the dialogue. You get a rich tapestry of character in 47 minutes through a performance. Werewolf by Night is awesome. Want more of them. Number 56, I was wrong. There's 2 more Eternals. Guys, spoiler alert, I like the Eternals. Makkari. Makkari is another great example of how you can wield a character that's unique correctly. This was a character who's deaf that doesn't feel like it's some sort of inclusionary panhandling. This is a character that represents something to people. This is a character that people can look to and go, that's me on screen. And she does it so magnificently, so deftly, so beautifully. The choreography of her movements, the way she just moves through the frame. This actress is able to do so much, and it's so beautiful, and it's so seemingly authentic to who she is, the actress and the character. Makkari has some of the best action in the MCU. That final action set piece, I don't care what flash footage you show me, that Makkari stuff is so incredible, and she stays so passionate through the film. And her relationship with my number 1 Eternal, who's coming up later, is also a key part of why I love that movie. And that wasn't even scripted. Those characters just had great chemistry. And when things like that happen, that's so real. We can have organic relationships happen on set that cause sparks, that cause on camera on script into the movie changes. Love that. Love Makkari. Number 55, a character, if you showed me the first one of these movies, I would never be like, that's my guy. But he's turning into my guy. He is played by the director's brother, and he is Kraglin. Kraglin is fascinating. I don't know what it is about him. I always want more Kraglin on screen. You got a cast of actors that I know very well by the time, these movies are coming out. You got Chris Pratt as a movie star. You got Zoe Saldana, who's like in the biggest movies ever between Avatar and the Marvel Universe. These are titans. And I'm like, James Gunn's brother, he's got something going on. You tell me more about Sean Gunn. And he's Rocket's body. Like, he's walking around like, this guy does so much. And there's something just so interesting about how earnest he is. Like, the Ravagers have something so us about them. There's this underdog thing to the Guardians for sure. They're the a-holes of the universe, but the Ravagers are just like getting by, man. And Kraglin's just one of the guys getting by. He's that mechanic you trust, and I love that. Kraglin, 55. At number 54, you're probably wondering, hey, why'd you talk about Werewolf by Night? You didn't talk about Man-Thing. Well, that's because he's higher up, because Man-Thing is not only a thing I never thought would work, but not only did he work, he kind of became the MVP of this movie. He has moments where his power is terrifying, but you still want to hug him. His beautiful, like, elephant eyes that are so, you're enamored, you're pulled into him, and yet he's a creature that warps reality, and you don't know a lot about him, but you know you want to know more. He doesn't really speak. You have to talk through Jack Russell to understand what's going on. His name's Ted, which is delightful. Everything about him is great. And as far as heroism, he's a cornered animal and he still doesn't attack people until he needs to. And that's impressive. This is something that's been chased his whole life. He's been seen as a monster. He's been seen as a beast. And he still has a sense of humor. He still has a best friend. He's still able to see the good in things. And that's all we can hope for, really. Number 53. I'm going to get some crap for this. I'm going to take a little sip. I'm excited for her to be higher. I'm excited for the movie she gets this year, where I hope she's higher. And, the movie made $1 billion, but it wasn't for me. And that means it was for a lot of people, which is great. I'm happy when something makes money that isn't for me, because a lot of artists got paid. I'll say the word love. I love Brie Larson, the actress, the person. I like Captain Marvel, the character, the hero. I have not seen those come together yet. I've seen tastes, I've seen pieces, and I love the pieces enough that they're this high. 53 is an optimistic. 53 is belief in the future. But I didn't feel the charisma that Brie Larson has coming out through Captain Marvel. I didn't feel the charming stoicism that Captain Marvel has coming out through the character. I feel like there's some block in the middle. I can see the pieces. I am very excited for them to come together. Number 52 is the second iteration of a character, the first of which got an honorable mention. I said Hank and Janet at the top, honorable mention. This is Wasp. Now, Evangeline Lilly is one of those actresses that whenever she shows up, you're interested. She just has that movie star quality. That said, I put her this low in the list because the entire first movie spends a lot of the time going, hey, I could do this better. Hey, why are we training this guy? Hey, I can do this better. And it took until the second movie for her get to do that. That's not her fault, but it definitely made me feel like this sense of frustrated stagnation about the character. Because it's like, I feel like Wasp wouldn't have taken no for an answer. Like, she wouldn't have listened to people being like, you sit down. And that's not fair to the character, but it's also not fair to where to put her on this list because I didn't get that until the second movie. The second movie, she's exceptional. I'm very excited for the scales to balance and for her to get to be 2/3 of the time awesome. But that first movie is really frustrating seeing her not get to be Wasp and play a sidekick. She's not a sidekick. It's Ant-Man and the Wasp. They're on the same title level. And now she is. I'm excited to see more of that. Number 51 is a guy who was miscast because he should have been a lead and they cast him as a supporting part. And I was like, don't you do that. He's Idris Elba. Heimdall is awesome. Heimdall could have been Thor. Heimdall is a force of nature, and Heimdall and Idris Elba both deserve better. I just feel like Heimdall, when he shows up, I'm always there. Thor Ragnarok, he gets some really badass action scenes, which is why he's as high up as he is. A lot of this is Idris Elba love. I'll totally own that. A lot of this is just me being a big fan of Idris Elba. I wish that I could put Heimdall in the top 50, and that's maybe why he's 51, because I'm like, my guy. The character in the comic books is between one note and fascinating. Like, they don't give him a lot of time, but when he gets time to dive in, you're like, this guy. I feel the same about Idris Elba's take on the character. Whenever they let Idris play, I'm all in. And he got more screen time throughout the movies. Spoiler alert for a movie from this summer. The post-credit scene, I was like, oh, good, they realized how great Idris Elba as Heimdall is. But I just feel like it was too little too late. Give me another world where he plays Thor himself, and I'm all in. Or Idris Elba, or Heimdall. Actually, matter of fact, you bring back Idris Elba as Beta Ray Bill, as the voice of Beta Ray Bill, and you solve all these problems. Keep him on the payroll, keep him in Asgard. Number 50 is the one that's going to get a lot of people upset with me, but hey, it means comments in the chat. It means Greg's happy. It's all the things. It is Spider-Man Tobey Maguire. You heard me, Spider-Man Tobey Maguire. Okay, so what heroes are is people that go through arcs and grow. What I struggle with the original Sam Raimi Tobey Maguire films is that he stays angry. And so the nerds, when they react to things, there's nerds that get even, and there's nerds that realize that they don't have to get even. You have people that are like, I'm going to get my bullies back in 20 years. And there's people that are like, I'm going to actually go be a successful CEO and forget the dude that peaked in high school. I think the way that Tobey played Spider-Man was the dude that's going to have revenge on Flash Thompson in 20 years. It's not healthy. He cheats on Mary Jane. He kisses Gwen Stacy in front of Mary Jane. He upside down kisses. He does the trademark thing we all love from the first film to cheat on the woman of his dreams. I get you have to introduce Gwen Stacy. I get you've got to grow the character cast out, but that is the least authentic Spider-Man thing ever. The reason Peter Parker, the nerdy guy that's so charming and good at science, has all these beautiful women around him in the comic books is because he respects them all. And all these women realize how rare that is. What does Tobey Maguire's Peter Parker do? Disrespects Mary Jane to her face. I don't like it. I don't feel good about it. But I will say, in No Way Home, they redeem it. In No Way Home, he addresses all that. He talks about how he has had to work on some things. He's a much more mature take on the character. The Tobey Maguire in No Way Home is much more the Peter Parker I always hoped he'd be by the third film and eventually got to be. So it is higher than it might, would be otherwise without No Way Home, and it's on this list because of No Way Home, because that's the MCU inclusion. So I will respectfully, because I know a lot of people love those films, it's just not my characterization, and it does demean the heroic aspects and certain elements of what Spider-Man is. The train scene notwithstanding, that's some heroism, obviously, but everyone knows his identity. It's him. Anyway, Spider-Man, number 50. All right, I got that off my chest. Number 49, Agent Phil Coulson. I am going to take this, the MCU route, and it's going to be just the movies. I consider Phil Coulson to have died in the Avengers because they needed something to avenge. I respect Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D., but I'm only going off. He got so many great moments in the movies, and that's what I love is if you have a character die in the course of duty and literally be the thing that names the Avengers, that's about as heroic as it gets. That is beautiful writing. That is a reason for these characters' names. That gives you a very unique MCU flavor. There is no Phil Coulson in the comic books. There is no, we need to avenge singular character. I love that they focused in on this one wonderful man, masterfully played by Clark Gregg, as this take on the character. I think he's perfect. From the trading cards to the use of the trading cards as something to avenge. Like, everything about this character is pitch perfect. Earlier in the movies, when you don't have a first name, your first name is Agent. There's just so much about this character that is so beautifully sterile government. But every time you see a little bit of Phil, you're really happy about it. And he's a hero that sacrifices himself. Love me some Phil Coulson. Number 49. Just above Phil Coulson is the great Maria Hill. Now, she is in the comic books, and she's someone who I always saw as a great asset amongst the S.H.I.E.L.D. chess pieces. And then they cast Kobe Smulders, and she brought so much more than a chess piece. I mean, I'd watch a Maria Hill movie, and I would not have said that before seeing what Kobe Smulders brought to this role. I want to see a spy movie with Maria Hill. I want to see what she thinks of the Sokovia Accords. I want to see what she thinks of Kamala's Law if that goes forward. I want to see what she thinks of the She-Hulk legislation that's going to pass. I'm so curious about this human amongst gods. Now, that's more DC's thing, right? Like, where they put, us here and the eye line is up at these gods. But Maria Hill's a great example. So is Phil Coulson of what it's like to have regular people around metahumans and how they can be heroes too. That's what makes her so special. 48. Coming in at number 47 is another Eternal. I realize there are a lot of Eternals on this list. The cast is huge. But this one, I thought they did a really cool job making him feel like he's part of the world, the tapestry of the world, and making him the most Marvel character in this very art house film. That is Kingo. I think Kingo, as played by Kumail Nanjiani, did a lot of heavy lifting comedically, but also didn't really let off the drama. You still cared about this character, and I love the idea of him playing his own grandson, him playing like his self through the ages, and it shows what immortality would be like in reality in a really cool way. And it also shows what it'd be like to be trapped in that running joke of your own life and to do all those things. And then when they incorporated him into Miss Marvel, when they made him a broader hero on the world stage, it just made him such an interesting character to me. So it was Kumail's portrayal and then Miss Marvel that really elevated him to this point. So we got Kingo pretty high at number 47. Number 46, Monica Rambeau. Now, WandaVision season was quite a long time ago, and when it was WandaVision season, we all sat strapped to our chairs, rapt at attention at this new thing. What was this MCU show? What were these mysteries? What's going on? And a huge part of that, and a lot of people remember, you know, the Wanda and Vision of WandaVision, but Monica Rambeau, comic fans knew she became Spectrum or Photon, depending on which continuity, and a lot of fans know that she's a Captain Marvel. We had that, and we were like, when's it going to happen? What's going on? Is that going to be another follow-up? She was part of the mystery and the intrigue, but what made this portrayal so interesting was she was day-to-day in Wanda's life as a best friend, and I completely bought they might just have that be the character. I thought, what if they changed comic continuity and Wanda invented this person? I thought, what if she's an agent of S.H.I.E.L.D. and this is her... And then they still managed to make a new and inventive reality manipulation by way of Wanda origin for this character that's totally unique canon to the MCU that works, I think, better in a lot of ways. Because now it makes sense she's Photon. Look at the reality, look at the imagery, look at all the things they did, and the characterization, the delivery, the friendship, the portrayal. I bought all of it. Love this take, and I cannot wait for the Marvels, in part because of how great Monica Rambeau was. Not to mention the daughter thing. We met her young in Captain Marvel. What a great way to tie in all those elements. Man, I really dug that. The daughter of the character we met before, as played by Lashana Lynch. That element where you use time travel in a linear time way, endearing us to the character without even having met her. Genius. There's so many elements of this character I dig. All right, into our top 45, and this is a character that had a lot to do and actually got moved movies for her introduction, which I can't imagine as an actor having to do. America Chavez. America Chavez, we were supposed to get No Way Home. She was supposed to open the portals to bring in the Spiderman, but then she was moved to Doctor Strange. COVID stuff happened, shenanigans ensued, and she was able to do so much while basically being an exposition chase character. She runs throughout this whole movie, and the charm of Xochitl Gomez is what makes this work. If you had a lesser actress in this role, if you had a less interesting character in this movie, it doesn't work. This perfect storm of what America Chavez had to be, immediately endeared to this new character, immediately curious in this young Avenger. I want to see the young Avengers in part because of Xochitl's performance, and there are definitely flaws. The exposition moment with the memory dump did not work for me, but she recovered from it. The character worked, and I want more of her. So America Chavez, 45. Number 44, and okay, this is the last Eternal. I promise. I got a lot of biases here. One, I love the actor playing him. Two, it was great to hear an Irish accent in the MCU. And three, I love the idea of humanity being what's more important, free will or happiness. Druig is that as a hero, and he's an anti-hero, just like he is in the comic books. Druig is not someone you trust. Druig's not someone you like, but you like him in the movie, in part because of a relationship with Makari, in part because Barry Keoghan is a goddamn mastermind of an actor, and in part because you kind of identify with where he's coming from. The opiate of the masses, the concept of just being like, screw it, just guide me through this world. I don't want to make decisions. It's hard to be a person, and he was right in a lot of ways that it is nice to just not have to make decisions. How great is it when sometimes someone makes dinner for you and it's a surprise, don't worry about it, here's dinner. He did that for an entire cult, and it made him happy. Is that good? No, it's no free will. It's a great question. I'm not saying I agree with cults. I'm not saying I agree with brainwashing, but I am saying it's a fascinating character, and at the end of the day, he chose the right thing. That's what makes him a hero. At the end of the day, he chose the side of freeing people, of letting humans make their own decisions, and Barry Keoghan, man, love this guy. Number 44, Druig. Number 43 is higher up than she would have been even a month ago because she finally got her time in the sun, and that is Mantis, thanks to the holiday special. Mantis hadn't gotten a lot of her own solo time. She hadn't got a lot of spotlight time, but when she did, it shone why Pom Klementif was cast. Like, this was just a Pom Klementif show. The holiday special was to show how incredible Pom was. Not only is she able to make childlike wonder not boring or childish or one note, but she's able to make it what we want to see the world as. And what better place than a Christmas special, right? That wonders of Christmas. But she's always trying to do the right thing. Like, she doesn't want to hurt anyone. She endures going through the horrors of Thanos. She puts herself in harm's way. She sacrifices a lot. She wants Peter Quill to be happy even at her own guilt. She shoulders the knowledge of the twist of Holiday Special for Peter. She's a hero, always sacrificing, always looking out for others, always taking care of others while being adorable, endearing, and great comedically. Love me some Mantis. I'm so glad the Holiday Special gave her time to shine. Number 42 is the wonderful, the captivating, the charming, the interesting, the Tatiana Maslany, She-Hulk. This one was hard to rank because, frankly, episodes 1 and 2 and 8 and 9 of She-Hulk are some of my favorite MCU. The middle, I did struggle through, and I understand why some elements in the middle were written the way they were because of episodes 8 and 9, but that doesn't change the fact that I don't feel like we got enough of the intelligence of She-Hulk. We didn't get enough of the witty in-court drama of She-Hulk. We saw a lot with Daredevil, certainly. We saw She-Hulk and Daredevil exchange witty barbs, but what She-Hulk represents is being more intelligent than so many people, including sometimes the audience. I would love to, in a season 2, see more of that in the courtroom. It's an anti-trolling choice, which I respect because trolls can off, but it is also a choice that puts us in a position of not knowing where to put her as a hero. She didn't actually have a villain to fight. She had the concept of trolls to fight. When she has to fight the leader, when she has to do these things, I'm very excited for it. We did see elements. We did see her fighting alongside Wong. We did see her do heroic things, which is why she's as high up she is, and because I love the character, and because she was truly, again, charming, intelligent, fun, pithy, all the things you want from She-Hulk. I just really need to see a little bit more to put her any higher. That said, she's very high. She's about halfway up because I love me some She-Hulk, and I really think they nailed a near impossible character. If you'd asked me a list of 10 impossible Marvel characters to translate, She-Hulk would absolutely have been on that, and they did it. Coming in at number 41. Okay, this is a fun one because I would not have ever expected this character to make this list up until the year the show came out. I think it was last year. Mobius is not a character that I go, man, I want me some Mobius television. Owen Wilson is not a character I would have thought, man, I want me some Owen Wilson in the MCU. I love Owen Wilson. I just would never have thought his Wes Anderson wow of goodness would fit. And yet, I have never wanted anything more than to see a man on a jet ski. And that is the power of Owen Wilson as Mobius. Mobius is lawful good to the level that it's the perfect counter to Loki. Loki is a bad guy gone good. You need that lawful good to counter him. Lawful good is the least interesting thing. I don't usually, again, I bring up Superman. I don't usually get enthralled by Superman comics. I don't usually invest in the world of lawful good. It's not my thing. Mobius is somehow so good and so right and so charming and so Owen Wilson that he's number 41, Mobius. It is Mobin time, is it? Guys, number 41, it's Mobin time. All right, top 40. We are about halfway. We got Nakia. Nakia from the Black Panther movies is so... I keep using the word captivating, but I think this is the most captivating a character has been with what she does in every frame. Lupita Nyong'o, one of the most stunning people to ever exist in a character that has to be that. She's a spy. She's an ambassador. She is a representative of her country. She cares about everyone, the citizens, the very people of the country. She doesn't want to get caught up in the king-queen madness. She doesn't want to deal with the world. She wants to know T'Challa, not King T'Challa. And somehow they're able to do that. They're able to translate that. And she's able to be seen as nothing but heroic, nothing but helpful. In the second movie, you find out she sacrificed even going to T'Challa's funeral in order to protect the secret of Prince T'Challa. That's heroic. That's selfless. That's beautiful. And to do it while helping people in Haiti. To do it while being on the ground, on the forefront, on the front lines of helping people that need it most. Beautiful. I just, like, that's a hero. And maybe of the characters I've talked about so far, like, maybe the most real hero? Like, people that are helping people in Haiti, people that are feeding people, people that are making sure that the citizens of countries are okay. Those are heroes. And Nakia, Lupita Nyong'o, man, what a role, what a hero, what a performance. Number 39, we got Moon Knight. Okay, so Moon Knight's tricky because I loved this show until the last episode. Last episode wasn't even that bad, but it did the thing that She-Hulk made fun of with the giant Marvel fight problem. So it's really hard for me to separate my feeling of how the show left me feeling versus how I felt during the show. I remember loving the show, watched it here with the guys, we had a great time, and I remember being like, oh my god, they did it, they made Moon Knight, how are they doing this? I think Moon Knight might be some of the best acting in the MCU. I think Oscar Isaac's portrayal of Moon Knight is absolutely. And I think the unique aspect of my criteria is absolutely here. I think it's one of the most unique characters. I think it's one of the most unique portrayals. I think it's one of the most unique shows. I think we saw him be heroic. I think we also saw him be not heroic, which also is interesting to give you the dichotomy, the duality. It's also a character that we don't necessarily have a guarantee of getting more of. We've heard season 2, sure, but I want to see more of him before I really decide where he goes. He was very consciously right in the middle because I love Moon Knight. I never thought we'd see him. He's alongside She-Hulk in that 10 character I never thought we'd see, but I don't know how I feel about where I left him. And that's not the character's fault. So as far as the character is portrayed, I give him a very high B, which is in this mid-range. Love me some Moon Knight. Number 38 is Wong-alicious. Wong has, in Phase 4, gotten so much more screen time for good reason. Wong is effectively our Nick Fury right now, recruiting what's either going to be the Dark Avengers or the Young Avengers. We'll see. But what is so great about Wong is he always makes the right move, but he always does it begrudgingly. I love that Wong always wants a sandwich more than he wants to fight the bad guys. And I also love that he'll always fight the bad guys. This is a guy that we met basically guarding the sacred books at Carmitage, listening to Beyonce, and that's a bop right there. That's a man that knows taste, eloquence, and how to be the right guy on the right side of the line. And then we get endeared to him. He's the classic character that like is stiff and stoic and breaks, and you fall in love with him, and we absolutely have. And at this point, he's watching Breaking Bad. So, I don't know. He's a very human character to be the master of the mystic arts. He's also one of the most powerful characters in the MCU, and Benedict Wong makes him personable, and that's what you want in a hero. Number 37. Now, we're getting to the point where this is a struggle. I think really from 40 up, it was Nakia could be in the top 30, Moon Knight could be in the top 30. Like, once you get past 40, it is anyone's game, but now it's real hard because 37, Kevin Smith's number here. Peggy Carter is a character I've loved from the beginning. Peggy Carter is a character who is not, as to me, interesting in the comic books. Peggy Carter serves as a North Star for Steve Rogers. She's so much more than that here. They made her a leader. They made her someone fighting on the front lines. They made her Agent Carter. They made her everything that Steve is in a, no disrespect to Chris Evans, even more beautiful package. I am so enamored by Haley Atwell because she's able to be so regal and so eloquent and so a woman of a bygone era while still being a modern badass. Like, there's something just so timelessly captivating about Haley Atwell, which is the only way to play this part. This is a woman out of time. This is a woman we see in her 80s dying in Steve Rogers' arms that we have to care for in the 40s, a time that none of us lived. I mean, someone watching this might be 90. Hello, 90-year-old. What was it like? But overall, that's not an experience we have, and yet there's something about her that makes it feel like she's from the 40s. And then when you've got Agent Carter, you have to immediately be endeared to her. We get no origin for her. We just know she's awesome, and she is. I don't know. There's something about Haley Atwell, and there's something about Peggy Carter that I really love, and it is, to me, superior than the comic take, which puts her pretty high at 37. Number 36, we're into the other team. We got through the Eternals. Now we're into the Guardians. We are going with Gamora. Gamora has a very hard job. She is an alien assassin that Star-Lord falls in love with. Star-Lord basically is our eye line into this crazy universe, and so we love Gamora. And that's a very hard role to play, a character that has all of her own backstory with Thanos, with her journey and everything else, but is also the object of affection. If you watch rom-coms, a lot of time either the male or the female is underwritten. Whoever's being pursued is often a little less of an intricate character, not as bad as it used to be, than the pursuer, and that can easily happen in a role like this, and they didn't ever let that happen. You're always as fascinated by Gamora as you are Star-Lord. Her backstory is arguably even more interesting, even though the film opens on Star-Lord's backstory. She's also green. It's a character that we don't identify. Like, it's a literal alien character, but what Zoe Saldana brings is this incredible openness, this incredible wonder, this incredible sense of even when she's under duress, she wants to help. She wants to do the right thing, even though everything in her programming says not to. She's the daughter of Thanos, and she got out to help people. Even if some of it's self-serving, she's a guardian of the galaxy for a reason, and I'm really excited to see what they do in 3 with this new timeline Gamora. Why is Gamora? Indeed. All right, we're going to stick with the Guardians of the Galaxy and go with number 35. Now, this one's tricky because this is a giant change from the comics, and I like them both. Sometimes comic changes are for the better. Like, I think Peggy Carter is a better character than she is in the comic books. Drax, I think, is great in both iterations. Drax is a Jim Starlin character who's a lot more vicious in the comic books. But I think this really fun, literal take is so useful because he's never dumb. He's literal. It's a very unique kind of comedy. Sometimes it goes a little far. I do think that in one of the Endgame or Avengers Infinity War, the Frozen scene is a bit much. There are moments that go a little far, but overall, the way he's written allows you to feel a different kind of humor that you need. The Guardians of the Galaxy movies are brutal. They are emotionally devastating. And without characters like Drax to bring you back, to have that, relief of a laugh in the middle of a cry, you're out. So I think Drax in this form is absolutely what it needs to be. And he's coming all from a place of heartbreak. The heroism is, Thanos destroyed his whole family. All of this is a revenge tale. And that could be so boring and so one note, but it never becomes one note or boring because of what Dave Bautista does with the character. Dave Bautista makes you feel every bit of his loss of family while making you laugh with him, not at him. And that's a hard thing to do, and he's never not a hero. No decision he makes, even when he's being selfish, somehow doesn't serve others, which is also a hard thing to do. Love me some Drax. Number 34, sticking with them Guardians, we got one of the MVPs as far as acting goes in the entire MCU. There's a lot of incredible acting in the MCU. I think Oscar Isaac is definitely a highlight. I think when we get to the top 10, I'm not going to give my top 10 away, but a lot of those are highlights. But this one was hard to not put any higher out of sheer talent of acting. It's just screen time, and that is Nebula. Nebula is in every movie, the scene stealer, I'm gonna say the scene stealer. Even in, you watch Endgame and everyone is going through trauma, and there's something about what Karen Gillan brings while covered in makeup with these giant black eyes that you just want to help so badly. She's so tortured, so broken. So her hero's journey is coming from a place, a lot of people are 6 feet under. She's 20 feet under. She has no reason to want to help anyone. She has no reason to be in any way endearing. But that fight between her and Nebula in Guardians 2 is so painful because you feel the punish twice. Every blow that lands, you feel for Nebula and Gamora. And I don't know how Nebula manages to be so interesting every time, how much pain you could feel for this character. She always does the thing that's going to make you feel for her. And she still does her, I don't know. I love Nebula so much. That's another whole video. Nebula's great. Number 33 is a character that immediately stole my heart. He is a character from the comic books that they literally don't even refer to as the name because it is so outdated and doesn't work at all. M'Baku. M'Baku is not a character I ever thought would be that's the guy from the comic to the screen. Winston Duke makes this character work, and they have so many details that tie into his original name, by the way, is Manape. Manape does not work. M'Baku is a character who is leading a rival tribe, and as a rival is never quite an antagonist. You don't ever have anything against this guy. You understand where he's coming from. In the movie Black Panther, everyone's perspective is fair to a point. Even Killmonger's worldview is pretty much just an American worldview, so you really need to have lots of nuance, and I think M'Baku has the most nuanced perspective outside of T'Challa. And that's the strength of the character, is he's protecting his people, he's protecting Wakanda, even though he's been ostracized out to the mountains. And then to tie in the comic elements, he's eating a vegetable in the second movie as a comedic element, but it's also a favorite vegetable of apes, so they make it a man-ape thing. It's genius what they've done with this character. Genius how human they've made a supporting character and how much you want more of him. I'll take an M'Baku movie tomorrow. Sign me up. Winston Duke, please. Number 32. Okay, so you've got the original Avengers, right? You've got the OGs. In the first film, you've got the 6. They all got a tattoo together. When you're replacing any of those 6, you are screwed. How are you going to replace Captain America? Well, you got Sam Wilson. How are you going to replace Thor? We don't even know yet. How are you going to replace Iron Man? We talked about Ironheart earlier. It's not easy. Hawkeye gave a whole show, 6 hours for Kate Bishop, who you may know we haven't talked about yet. I was like, man, how are they possibly going to replace one of the first to die? Black Widow is a very beloved character, and Yelena Belova is another assassin, and it's all Florence Pugh, man. Florence Pugh is immediately captivating. That's the subtitle of this video. Top 75 heroes captivating. But Yelena Belova is so much. Every time she's on screen, she's funny, she's terrifying. You want to hate her, but you can't. She's the sister you don't want but love. It's exactly what she needed to be. And that's the only way we can get another Black Widow in the universe. If you're going to have another Russian assassin from the Red Room that doesn't feel like a copycat, I can think of no other way. And the fact that she's had such beautiful redemption so far, the fact that she's done so much heroic already in her limited appearances, such a hero, such a titan. Love me some Yelena Belova. Number 32. Number 31, maybe the person with the least screen time in the top almost 30. We're getting again into the I could have moved anyone around here. This one is she gets pretty high up because of the oh my god, how did they do this of it all. Elsa Bloodstone has like 20 minutes of screen time, most of which are in black and white. I'm more invested in the future of what Elsa Bloodstone does in the MCU than some of the characters we met 14 years ago. I don't know how they did this, but a character that's literally a monster hunter from the comics, a very one-note, very 90s, let's show some boobs character that doesn't really get a lot of stretch. Well, that's all she does is stretch. She doesn't have the character integrity that you'd want a full-fledged lead to have. Immediately give her in Werewolf by Night. You care about her family. You care about her history. You care that she was mistreated. You care about what monster hunting she's going to get into. You want her to get the Bloodstone. You want her to treat Ted with respect, and she does. You care about, like, her stunts are incredible. The physicality of Elsa Bloodstone. I loved her choreography as well as the portrayal. I don't know, 20 minutes of screen time or so. Elsa Bloodstone is number 31. Love her. Coming in at number 30 is an actress that I did not know before the Black Panther movies, but now will watch anything she does. Denai Guerrera is a powerhouse. I love Okoye so much. Okoye, she makes so many decisions that I should hate. She sides with Killmonger. She stays a loyal trooper. She just does. She's U.S. agent. She just does as she's told. She just listens to the badge. I'm not a fan of that in life or in characters, and yet Okoye is so great and so fascinating, and I get it. I see where she's coming from. The Dora Milaje swear an oath, and she abides by that oath. So much so that in the second film, I think the best scene in the film is her versus Angela Bassett in a battle of just sheer willpower and emotion and loss. And what's honorable is leaving the staff and leaving your post, and that's what she does because she's honorable. Every decision she makes is about honor, and that's incredible, and it's never boring. And sometimes that can be in a character. Okoye is such a boss. I love her a lot. Number 30. Coming in at number 29 is a character that made a giant mistake, which cost us half the people in the universe. But that's human. And he's half human. Star-Lord, I do feel like gets a lot of, oh my God, why would he do that? Because that's the character. You need to factor in the emotion of humanity. The human element of these heroes is so important. And that's what separates these characters from a lot of other characters. And that's what separates this universe, I think, than a lot of other shared universes. The human element. And a lot of times you need Star-Lord for that. Look at the Guardians of the Galaxy. They're all aliens, very clearly. Look at them. Star-Lord's our eye line. I said that earlier about Gamora. If he hadn't been so emotionally invested in Gamora and punched Thanos, it wouldn't have felt authentic. I think that was one of the most heroic things he did. And it wasn't heroic. It was human. And that's heroic. Being a person, feeling your emotions. It's important. And I don't know, something about that moment. Also, you know, all the Guardians movies, him being great, him being our eye line, him being funny, him being charming, him saving the universe, him having a dance-off for heroism. But that moment that a lot of people hate, I think is really important. So it's the main thing I'm focusing on here. Star-Lord's number 29 for a bevy of reasons, but I love me some bold characterization through emotion. Coming in at number 28 is our new Captain America, Sam Wilson. As the Falcon, dude had to endure a lot of on your left. He had to be number 2. He had to be a soldier. He had to say yes, sir, and answer to things even when he didn't necessarily think it was right. But when he knew it was wrong, he didn't blindly do things. And I think that's what makes a hero. I think that's what's really important about the character is he has a very important set of morals and ethics. I loved the characterization we got with him in Falcon Winter Soldier. I love getting to see his family. I love that they use Anthony Mackie's origins instead of the comic book origins because you don't have to be beholden to the comic books. I love when things work. I love when you can translate the comic books, but I think making it about Anthony Mackie's New Orleans was much more captivating than just following a comic book. It felt more real. It felt more earnest. And the human element of Sam Wilson is what makes him Captain America. Bucky should never have been given the shield in the MCU. It makes sense in the comic books. What they did made sense. But we saw through the course of 7 movies or whatever, why it deserved to be Sam Wilson. He didn't need to be in therapy like Bucky did. He didn't have the trauma that Bucky did, or he was able to handle the trauma better than Bucky did. He was always the right man for the job. That's not an easy role, to be the right man to take over something, to be the number 2. He's always been the number 2, and that is not an easy role to fill without feeling like a junior, without feeling like a lesser. Anthony Mackie did a very, very great job at becoming the man that would become Captain America, and I'm excited to see him in those wings. Coming in at number 27, one of my favorite new characters in the comic books, one of my favorite young actresses working, and one of my favorite portrayals of said character as actor Kate Bishop is Hawkeye. This was a show that I loved, and then it just fell apart for me in such a way that it breaks my heart to this day. I still think it's one of the best action set pieces in the entire MCU is that bow and arrow down the highway, the chase sequence with the car is staggering. But what makes Kate Bishop so interesting is she's us in a less specific way than Miss Marvel. We have a character in Miss Marvel that is literally us, right? A fangirl, a diehard. Notice she's not been on the list yet. She's coming. Kate Bishop's the underdog in another kind of way. She's rich, but doesn't feel welcome. She doesn't have a place she belongs. It's so hard to write a rich character as an underdog, and they do it. She doesn't belong because she doesn't identify with these people. She doesn't fit into this world, and she wants to help more than she wants to just be rich. That's hard, and that's a hero. To sacrifice the easy way out to do the hard thing is a hero. And Haley Steinfeld nailed that. I was immediately so fascinated by this take on the character because it felt so akin to the comic, but in a new medium. Like I could hear the words that were written by Matt Fraction. I could hear the comic book come to life, but Haley Steinfeld was exactly it to a level that I didn't expect to work. Because I've talked about adaptation versus translation. It almost felt like a translation, but it was the perfect adaptation. Love Haley Steinfeld as Kate Bishop. Number 26, we're almost there into that top 25, is Mary Poppins, y'all. Yondu isn't your father, but he is your daddy. This is one of the great sacrifices in modern superhero films. I love the father betrayal and then redemption of Star-Lord's whole thing, man. The loss of parents is a very big Marvel trope, comic book trope, but it's really well done here with Yondu. Fatherhood isn't just about blood. Being someone's dad is not about just blood. It's who raises you, who takes care of you, who is there for you as that paternal figure. And you would never have thought we'd get from where we meet Yondu in Guardians 1 to where we end with Yondu in Guardians 2, ever. I would never have seen that arc being so beautiful, and that's Michael Rooker, man. Self-sacrifice for your child is about as heroic as it gets. Mary Poppins, y'all. Number 26, Yondu. Coming in at number 25 is the man that brought them all together, the man who was going to instigate that Avengers initiative, the great Nick Fury. So Nick Fury is spy extraordinaire, but he's also a man who is always going to do the right thing. He is a man that'll dismantle S.H.I.E.L.D. He's a man that doesn't trust anybody. He trusted someone once, and it was a cat, we learned later on. But he's always the guy that's going to do the right thing, and that's what heroes are. It's great because Samuel L. Jackson is the guy that's always yelling and, known for his excellent use of four-letter words, but there's something inherently charming about Nick Fury and Samuel L. Jackson's portrayal of him that you trust him even though all things say you shouldn't. Like, he's literally a guy carrying a gun and, all leather like a Matrix villain, and yet like this guy. I think Nick Fury is a fascinating take on the character. I think they elevated the 70s Nick Fury and the Howling Commandos of it all into a real character. He feels fleshed out. Got a lot of love for him. 25. Coming in at number 24 is the original Groot. Remember, Baby Groot is a new Groot. This is OG Groot. This is the Groot that died in Guardians 1. And that's a huge part of this. We talk about heroic sacrifices. I think one of the greatest lines in the MCU is "We are Groot." We have a character that only can say one thing. And remember, this is the only alternate thing he ever said because every other line from either Groot so far has been, "I am Groot." But to this point, we'd only ever heard these amazing different portrayals by Vin Diesel, these different deliveries, these different ways of expression through "I am Groot." And then "We are Groot" is what the Guardians is about. They're a family. They unite. And it's through the sacrifice of Groot they're able to survive. It's a beautiful moment. It's the definition of heroism. And it's from a giant talking tree. I've said it so many times, but I remember when Guardians was announced, it was the first time I was worried something had been Disneyfied. Everyone was complaining about Age of Ultron, like, oh, they're using Pinocchio in the trailer. I didn't care about that. It was the idea that there was going to be a talking raccoon, a talking tree. I was like, this looks, maybe they're selling toys. I was so wrong. I didn't know James Gunn's work that well at this point. I was a fool. This tree taught me to love again. Groot's number 24. Number 23 is a character that I feel like was perhaps the most shortchanged of the entire Thor family. And that's saying something, because you know my thoughts on Jane Foster and how much I love her. I feel like Lady Sif is so good every time she's on screen, to the point of making Thor Dark World watchable. The love triangle in Thor Dark World is more interesting than a lot of the other relationships in Marvel, and that is, I think, still the worst of the Marvel films. But the dynamic between Lady Sif, who is the god element of Thor, and Jane Foster, who is the mortal element of Thor, being at conflict only works because of how fascinating Jamie Alexander is. Natalie Portman's obviously who we know he's going to end up with. In love triangles, usually one character isn't interesting. The Notebook, James Marsden is so interesting, but you know it's going to be Ryan Gosling. You don't really invest in James Marsden. That man needs a better team because he should be a giant star. James Marsden's a huge star, but he should be Ryan Gosling. I digress. But you know what I'm saying? Like, when you watch The Notebook, you're not like, I'm going to go on the James Marsden journey. I wanted to know everything about Jamie Alexander's Lady Sif. Also, I would say before Wonder Woman came out, some of the best female-led fight scenes. She's incredible on the battlefield. She's the character I wanted back most when she's just disappeared from Thor Ragnarok. It was the character I was the most upset with being, shortchanged in Love and Thunder, and that's saying something. Jamie Alexander is so, I'm going to say it, captivating. 23. Coming in at number 22 is Don Cheadle as War Machine. We'll include Terrence Howard for the arc, but it's Don Cheadle. And that's actually a huge part of this, is when you take over a role from someone else after they've been the origin of the character, after they're introduced, they literally have a line that's next time, baby. Like, we know War Machine's coming from the first Iron Man, and it's still exciting every time. The Secret Invasion trailer is in part so interesting because of the sheer depth of knowledge of what Colonel Rhodes has behind his eyes. He knows so much more that he lets on, and it never feels nefarious. He's a hero that keeps his cards to the chest, but not in a spy way, because that's Nick Fury. It's a guy that just doesn't trust the institutions that he was handed to, and I love that conflict. The conflict of Colonel Rhodes as a colonel dealing with the military and being an honorable member of the military while Tony's doing all this reckless shit, that's their brotherhood. And that doesn't work if the actor and the character don't still feel like they can stand on their own two legs. We should have had an Iron Man 4/War Machine years ago. We're getting Armor Wars. It's well overdue. This character can stand on his own two legs when he's been a sidekick for so long. Much like Bucky, like, this is a powerhouse character that's been like right over here, finally getting his time in the sun. I really think he's such a noble hero. And I've got my own issues with the militarization of choices, but I think that the Marvel Cinematic Universe could have become way too like gung-ho recruitment video if it wasn't for the nuanced take of Colonel Rhodes with Don Cheadle. 22. All right, number 21. This one's hard, man. 21 is a character that I really like in the comics, that I like in the movies, but I do acknowledge is probably the most different in how I think of them between the movies and the comics in a more negative way. Top 3 are all characters that I think are improvements from the comic books. This one is a slight demerit, but it's more of a lateral move. It's not lesser, it's just lateral. I think the Hulk has been too teamified. If you look at Ed Norton's Hulk, it's a very independent character. The Incredible Hulk was able to be his own man. I think that Mark Ruffalo's Hulk, though always interesting, is only an object of the team dynamic. And that's hard because I know Universal has rights issues and there's problems there with how to get that movie out. And I respect that, and I'm not blaming anyone. But it always feels like Mark Ruffalo, as the Hulk, is a character that has to serve the greater MCU. And that's really ironic, considering the Hulk is the thing that destroys the MCU. In the Avengers, the Hulk is fighting alongside them at the final battle. But, we see him get, messed up and brainwashed delightfully in Age of Ultron and get to see the Hulk again. But we don't get to see the Hulk smash in a way that feels authentic to the Hulk again in 10 years. So there's just something about the portrayal of the Hulk that I really... That's what I'm trying to say. We're at 7/8 of an arc. I think when this lands and we get Worldbreaker Hulk and we get more of the aggressive portrayal of the Hulk like in the comic books, it's going to feel complete. So he's this high because there's so much potential and because I love the character, and nothing is wrong. I've seen nothing wrong. There's nothing I'm saying is negative. That's why, again, this is really high on the list. This is almost top 20. I just feel like it's not complete yet. And I think when it's complete, it could be top 15, maybe even top 10, depending on how they stick that landing. But I do feel like there's a piece of Hulk missing, and I'm excited to see that get filled. Top 20 of 75 characters. This list is long. We got the only person that could take over a very, very, very impossible mantle. We got a character that is a legacy character in the comic books, but we didn't know if that was going to land as a legacy character in the movies. We have a very charming, very funny, very quippy sidekick sister in Shuri. In the first Black Panther, Shuri is a highlight because she's a lot of the levity. That movie's fun for sure, but a lot of the quips, a lot of the dialogue, a lot of the what are those of the movie are Shuri. And that's her in the comics a lot of the time. But she's also a regal-ass warrior. She's a badass. The character's arc in the second movie is kind of the great arc of the fourth phase of Marvel, in that it is a lot of redemption of mourning, a lot of grief and assessing mourning. And I think Shuri does an incredible job staying on the right side of that line. You have to waver. Heroes are going to make mistakes, and she almost does. She almost kills Namor. I think the way she comes around and the way her connection to her mother and the way the Queen Mother speaks to her, that's her, good and evil, right? Like Killmonger and Queen Mother, like there's some really beautiful elements of the duality of being a hero through Shuri. I think she kind of embodies the whole Phase 4 arc, and I think Shuri, in her 2 appearances that we've really gotten her with, has been a standout, and Shuri is my number 20 of the heroes in the MCU. Number 19. We're into the top 20. We're doing it, y'all. This is a character I mentioned before as a very, very positive thing. I was talking about Kate Bishop being a fish out of water in that she doesn't identify with being rich while rich, and she's an underdog in her own way of feeling like a fish out of water around that world. This is a character that is us, and if she wasn't played masterfully, would have been just ridiculed. I have said before and I will say again, Community is a show written by nerds for nerds about nerds. Big Bang Theory is a show written about nerds, not by nerds. That feels like it's punching down at nerds. I have a lot to say about the Big Bang Theory. If you guys want, it's the only time I don't do negativity. You guys know me. I'll do a full video on why the Big Bang Theory hurt nerd culture for like a decade. But this character could have been the Big Bang Theory of the MCU is what I'm saying. She could have been, oh, look, you cute people with your Avengers con. Miss Marvel shouldn't work this well. In the comic books, Miss Marvel is an incredible eyeline into a culture that I'm not as familiar with as most cultures. And through the Miss Marvel comic book, I learned so much about Muslim culture in a way that is why I love comic books, in a very non-judgmental way, and just a look how much this works for us. Look how happy we are. Look at these things we do in our lives in this culture. All rituals are crazy if you look at them, but we often other cultures. I love that Miss Marvel, the show, leaned as heavily into that as the comic does, while also leaning as heavily into the family aspect. I've said time and time again, Miss Marvel is the Silver Age Spider-Man of our day, and Aman Vellani not only had to be the Silver Age Spider-Man of our day, but she also had to be all of us. Luckily, they cast someone that is literally all of us. One of the biggest Marvel geeks in the world just happens to be in it now. Aman Vellani, Miss Marvel, is not only a hero in the MCU, but she's a hero in our world. She's a delight. She's a gateway between us and this magical fictional world. And everything she does in that show is pitch perfect for the character and for growing out the world, the New Jersey elements, the things she says to save people both emotionally and physically, the way she's revealed to be the first mutant, very much opening up the world of like, stop judging other people. Heroes don't judge other people. And she's the physical embodiment of that. And she's Mom Vellani, so she's great. All right, number 18. Talked about movie star elements a few times in this list, and some people just have a nest. Some people have a movie star quality. This actor came out on the stage when they announced Phase 4, and I was like, that's a movie star. I don't know who that guy is, but that is just charm on stage as a human, and that man was Simu Liu, and then 2 years later, we got Shang-Chi, and I was right. This movie is one of the best origin comic movies, period, and it came out in Phase 4. That is hard to do. We're deep into the MCU. It is hard to do the origin thing now, and that's why we've kind of skipped it a lot of the time. Sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't when we skip over it. This felt like it was, the MCU's already in progress, and we still got that great origin story. Heroes do what's right, even if it hurts them. Heroes sacrifice. This is a man literally fighting his father. This is a man going up against everything. This is an entirely new world by the time we get to the end of this film. This is so many great comic book archetypes used correctly. And it improves on the comic. The comic book, it was written in the 70s, and it had a lot of martial arts tropes and a lot of things that are very simplistically toned down. This added a lot of depth and layers to it. Without Shang-Chi as a focal point, without the character of Shang-Chi being so interesting and so charming. Again, like he's funny, he's quippy, he's interesting, he's got a lot of us in him. He's also effortlessly cool in a way that lends itself to being a superhero in that origin sense. I don't know, there's just something about Shang-Chi that is so captivating, and I really think that without Simu playing him, or without the really, really pitch-perfect writing and the way they navigated this expanding of worlds, it wouldn't have worked, and it's all about being a new hero. I liked that the whole thing was him getting, his sea legs on him. He's figuring his world out. It's a great new addition, and I think Shang-Chi's going to be one of the biggest Avengers going forward for good reason. And number 17 is Ant-Man. Now, 17 is a tricky spot to put this character because he's an OG Avenger, but this character is not the OG Avenger, Hank Pym. This is the side Ant-Man in Scott Lang, and I like that they went this way. I think Hank Pym would have been too similar to other characters. It would have been too linear. I like that they chose the guy that is an Avenger that's an underdog. And Scott Lang's never really an Avenger, but in this case, in the MCU, the guy's a thief for good. He's Aladdin, effectively. He's stealing for good. And I love that take on, like, heroism has so many different faces. It's not cut and dry. This man will do anything for his family. He'll do anything for his daughter, and I think that's going to come into play in Ant-Man 3 in a big way. And the heroism of him isn't coming from a place of, like, pure altruism all the time, and I like that. That's so much more nuanced. He's just trying to get by. He's just trying to do the right thing. He's fallen in with an interesting crowd. I don't know. I like that Ant-Man isn't the cut and dry hero he could have been, and I like that they're leaning into the ridiculousness of Ant-Man, and it's a genius move to cast the impossibly affable Paul Rudd. Everything about this works for the Scott Lang choice, and I think that's the right choice for the MCU, especially veering from the comic books. Coming in at number 16 is a man who once was a hero and then was a villain. Then he came back around through a lot of therapy, and that's important to do. Winter Soldier, the White Wolf. Bucky Barnes, Sebastian Stan. He's got many names. I love this take on the character so much because it was one of the first, like, oh my God, they're adapting that comic so quickly. Ed Brubaker wrote this Winter Soldier story like a few years before they adapted it. Bucky Barnes was like Uncle Ben. He's one of the only characters that stayed dead. And I didn't think he would work as a guy that came back. I thought one of the great strengths of Steve Rogers was that loss of his Robin, so to speak. But man, did they make that Nightwing cool when he came back. I really think they did a great job in casting Sebastian Stan because you trust him when you know you shouldn't. There's something about him in Civil War where even when he's, doing the right thing, you're like, man, that guy's a few code words away from being a problem. And there's always that ticking time bomb element. And that's what keeps him interesting as a character. You completely know that Bucky Barnes now wants to do the right thing, but there's this undercurrent of what if, which is fascinating. I think that's what he's going to play in Thunderbolts. The what if element. What's that other side of Bucky? And when he's Winter Soldier, he's not on this list. This is the good Bucky Barnes that makes this list. And what makes him unique is that anti-hero element where he's one decision away from being like, we shouldn't have trusted him. But you want to. He's so good. And he's always trying to do the right thing. He's always trying to, he's with Steve to the end of the line. He's buying his plums, trying to get his brain to work better. He's going to therapy. He's a good guy. He's a hero. Love me some Bucky Barnes, one of my favorite characters. All right, my lucky number, and I talked about it before, a character I didn't think would work on screen, and I'm so glad I was wrong, as voiced by Bradley Cooper, which still feels wrong. I can't, even when I watch the videos of Bradley Cooper voicing Rocket Raccoon, I still think it's a dub, like someone dubbing Bradley Cooper. He's so good. Rocket Raccoon is the saddest creature in the universe, according to James Gunn, and that is going to be so heartbreaking, I think, in May. I think it's going to break us in a whole new way. We all love this. Not raccoon. We all love this man, this creature, this manifestation of all of our angst and all of our wants. Like he does so many, he's mischief incarnate, man. He's the Bart Simpson of the old school Bart Simpson of the MCU. He's always stealing stuff, and he's always like, he's selfish to a fault, but only up to a point. I love the moments where he breaks and you realize that he cares more about family than himself, but he'll never tell you that. He'll never agree to it. His conversation with Thor in Infinity War is one of my favorite scenes of either Thor or Rocket, but it's because of our relationship with Rocket that scene works. He is the best. I don't know. I love this character so much. He's an ultimate hero because he can leave at any point. He can build something to get out of here. He could have left forever ago. He was doing it for the money. We meet him teaming up with Groot to kidnap Star-Lord for money, but he's always wanted a family, and that's what makes life worth living, is that connection. And we see that in every decision he makes. Love Rocket Raccoon, number 15. All right, number 14 is another of the original OG 6, the only one that didn't get a movie for a while. No, Black Widow didn't get a movie for a while. These two poor characters. Hawkeye, y'all. Hawkeye finally got a show, and we got to see the glory that is Jeremy Renner's take on Hawkeye. I use Everyman a lot. It is the thing I like about heroes. I like characters that feel like you can run into them on the street, and then they'll do something otherworldly. I like extraordinary, but you need the ordinary as an option. Hawkeye is that to a T. This man can do all sorts of extraordinary things, but he's a guy shooting arrows, and, he acknowledges that. I love the awareness of this character. The scene where he recruits or convinces Wanda to be an Avenger is one of the great dialogues of the MCU. The scene in Age of Ultron between Hawkeye's family and the Avengers is my favorite scene in that movie, and one of my favorite scenes in Phase 2, and Age of Ultron is one of my least favorite films in Phase 2. It is a highlight of the humanity of being a hero. He's doing this at cost. The cost of not seeing his family, the cost of maybe never coming home to his family. He's aware of that every day, and he's doing it alongside gods who are going to be much more likely to come home than him. That's a hero. Knowing your sacrifice and still putting that vest on and shooting your arrows at aliens. That's a hero. And Jeremy Renner is the everyman that needed to play this character. I think he's one of the slept-on cast decisions. Like when we talk about great castings in the MCU, we don't talk about Jeremy Renner as Hawkeye enough. We would not have a good Hawkeye without this personification. He can very easily go wrong. Great uniting of character and actor, as well as utilizing this character in this world. In the original Avengers, if you don't have the human element, that movie does not work nearly as well, and it's smart they've kept him around. Number 13. Okay, so I feel like this character is going to be a lot higher in other people's lists or a lot lower, but I feel like 13 is not where people would put this character. I really struggled with where to put this guy because I like his movies, but don't love them. I like this portrayal, but I love it more than the comic books often. He doesn't always settle well with me, and that's what's interesting, but I still have to put him high. Doctor Strange, y'all. Doctor Strange is the master of the mythic arts in the comic books. He has been close to that in the movies. What's tricky is Benedict Cumberbatch plays him exquisitely, but I like him better in the team movies than his solo movies, but for the opposite reason of the Hulk. With the Hulk, I feel like he's got a little bit of handcuffs to what storytelling you can have because he's stuck in the team movies, whereas Doctor Strange feels like he's emboldened when he has the versatility of playing with a team. I hope that makes sense. What I like about him as an Avenger is his sense of humor and his tenacity and temerity all work when bouncing off of others, but I don't necessarily find it as captivating in solo endeavors. And so that's why he's like in this strange spot where I'm like, man, I almost want him in the top 10, but I also want him at like 20. So 13 is Doctor Strange. It's more of a personal conflict with the character than maybe anything he's done. Obviously, he's sacrificed so much. He has spent eternities battling Dormammu. He's come to bargain. He has lost his love over and over again through the multiverse and was willing to, because that's what heroes do. He's done all the things that make you a hero. I just want to see him. I think much like Hulk, there's just one piece missing that I'm really excited to see get filled. All right, top 12, you lovelies. We are into the top 12. Let's talk about Thor. Thor has been on a walkabout from the jump. Thor has been trying to figure out who he is, what he wants, where he belongs, and I love that in a heroic character. I am on record since Endgame of my great love of the crosshairs of the big three. The big three being Captain America, Iron Man, and Thor. And they position them very clearly, especially in Endgame, as that big three. In the comics, they're the big three of the Avengers. You got Cap going from a more selfless character to making a selfish decision, and Iron Man going from a more selfish character making a selfless decision, and through the middle is Iron Man, and through the middle is Thor figuring out who he is. He is always seeking knowledge. He is always seeking what his destiny is. He's always losing family members. He's losing friends. He's losing a sense of identity. Like, the man is lost as a character. That would make a lot of people vengeful. That would make a lot of people depressed. And it does. He's depressed. He's vengeful, certainly. But it never puts him out. He's never out of the game. He's never on the sidelines. He gets back in there. He will always fight for whoever's left. The scenes, I again bring up Rocket and Thor, the scenes where these two outcasts that have lost everything are talking. That's Thor, man. That's the tone. That's the man. And I do consider they're the rockiest for me, but I think that's part of it, is like, this is a man always searching. And I feel like the movies are searching too. But just like the character, they keep finding new ways to make this character. And he's higher than my other missing a piece characters because I feel like it's part of his identity. I feel like Hulk and Doctor Strange are missing something. Thor missing something is part of what drives him. And I think it's really beautiful to make a god be seeking humanity as his narrative. And I think that's what heroes do. So I love me some Thor. He is number 12. All right, number 11. I'm going to call her a hero, and I'm going to say she is a hero, and we're going to, acknowledge that she's also on the villain list, just like another one of my top 10 coming up. This is a character that is both a hero and a villain, just like they are in the comic books, but when she's a hero, she has no right to be, and that's what makes her even better a hero. This is Wanda Maximoff. This is a miracle child who was trapped, tortured. She is kidnapped by Hydra. We meet her in a cell alongside her brother being manipulated with her powers. This is a character that has gone through the ringer, and yet she still helps people. She's lost everything, and she still helps people. She had the incident where she kidnapped an entire town, and she's so good at her core that we still felt for her. We still understood where she was coming from. We still wanted to help in some weird way. We still felt bad when she was like apologizing. I don't know. There's just something so good about Wanda. And Liz Olsen brings so much humanity to this Scarlet Witch of a character. She's a witch, but she's seeking how to be a good person. I don't know. There's magic in this character. She has every right to be evil. And that's part of my issue with Multiverse of Madness. We've talked about that a lot. She has every right to be evil, and she chooses good. And she does it while fighting some of her own instincts and some of her own history and some of her own, her powers are manipulating others, and she doesn't choose to do that often. She's good. She's a hero. She's Wanda. I love Wanda Maximoff, number 11. All right, we're into the top 10, and this is a fitting place for my second most controversial pick, maybe of this whole list. And it's another Spider-Man. We had number 50 be controversial. Now we're talking number 10. Andrew Garfield's Spider-Man is my number 10, and he is now a part of the MCU thanks to Spider-Man No Way Home, and he is very high up because I think he is the most accurate representation of Spider-Man from the comics. Now, that's only a part of this situation of my parameters here for what makes a hero. He owns his faults in a way that most heroes don't. He talks about being angry and swinging and hitting too hard and not being able to let that go. His journey is constant reflection. He's also amazing and doesn't see it. He's self-effacing. He's very, to a fault, overly humble. He kind of, self-flagellates. Like, the man doesn't realize how great he is, and that's also heroic in its own way. It's also Spider-Man. Whatever the opposite of boastful is truly what Spider-Man is. When he's in the costume, he puts on the mask and he's boastful as a defense mechanism. It's to stay calm while he's doing crazy stuff. As soon as he's Peter Parker, he's very openly, no, not this guy, demoralizing. And I love that Andrew Garfield's able to capture that while being so charming. Andrew Garfield, there was this weird thing where Andrew Garfield was cast and people were like, he's too handsome. He's not nerdy enough. You can be nerdy and have good genes. And also, Peter Parker was never that weird schlubby boy. It was a very weird thing where, handsome doesn't equal cool, and skateboarding doesn't equal cool. There was decades where skateboarding wasn't. I don't know. I have a whole problem with the Amazing Spider-Man era of judgment on Andrew Garfield. And I think that rubbed off into the present. So when you look at the actual arc of the character, his journey is about getting knocked down and getting back up. Spider-Man's very much Rocky, right? You got Spider-Man, a lot of the iconic images are Spider-Man under Amazing Spider-Man issue 33, the cover, him under all that rubble and not stopping and pushing that through, which they used with Tom Holland very literally, but that's Spider-Man. He never lets it get too much. Losing Gwen Stacy, losing, Captain Stacy, losing Uncle Ben, losing Aunt May, he loses everyone, but he always knows if he can save one more person. It's always about saving one more person. I feel like Andrew Garfield is the Spider-Man that's always wanting to save one more person. To me, the comic book version of the character, there is one Spider-Man left. He's in the top 10 as well. But, I'm a Spidey guy, so there's the two Spider-Men. But I do feel like Andrew Garfield's Spider-Man doesn't get enough love, and I do feel like he's gotten these 3 amazing portrayals, and he deserves to be in the top 10 because he is that superhero arc to a T. We see the character grow from 1 to 3, and we see what it means to be a hero. The moment he catches MJ and it completes that full arc, that full journey, hero shit. It's great. Coming in at number 9 is the anti-hero of the MCU, the villain of the Avengers that has become a hero. And this, much like Doctor Strange, is a hard one to place because he is certainly a hero. But where do you put Loki? At the end of the day, you love that you don't know to trust him. But through Tom Hiddleston's portrayal, through the show especially, you know he's going to do the right thing. And I love that half the time we've had him on screen, I think literally half the appearances, he's done the backstabbing. He's done the wrong thing. But the latter half, he's done the right thing. Avengers, Thor Dark World, bad guy, end of Dark World, sacrifice. Comes back, duplicitous in Ragnarok. At the end of Ragnarok, fully good, seemingly. Love and Thunder, not present. Infinity War, good, time displaced. Endgame, not present. Loki show, all good. It's literally half and half, I think. But you want to believe in him. To me, there's something inherently heroic in the character. They've actually reframed the character in the comics. He's no longer the god of lies. He's the god of stories. Now, I do believe, and I'm not a mythology major, I think god of stories, god of lies are more synonymous in the old school mythology. Again, I don't know. I don't know Norse mythology as well as I know comic books. But in the comics, they've reframed him as the god of stories. He's such a good hero. Tom Hiddleston portrays him so beautifully in such a positive way that we want to believe in him. They've rewritten the comic books. That's a hero. That's awesome. That's exciting. It's retroactively changing the character. Tom Hiddleston's so captivating. We want to love him so much. I don't know. There's just something inherently altruistic about even being mischievous through the guise of Loki. Number 9. Coming in at number 8, my favorite drunkard who finally got the screen time to tell some of the stories she deserved in Love and Thunder, a character I want to get her own movie or own TV series, a scene stealer and a half, Tessa Thompson's Valkyrie. I love every scene Valkyrie's in. I don't love Thor Love and Thunder as much as I initially did at first viewing. I don't love Ragnarok as much as many others. These aren't my peak MCU films. Like, the Thor movies just haven't sung for me that much, but this is my number 8 pick, and it's another Thor character. Valkyrie, there's something about her. This is a character who lost everything in front of her eyes. She lost the love of her life right in front of her, and they cut the scene, which felt extra dark and ironic in hindsight. You're like, I've lost everything, even the scene validating my loss of everything. And they finally gave her that in Love and Thunder. I loved the rare screen time where we got to talk with Valkyrie, where we got to digest what she'd been through and how much she was still willing to do. And not only is she willing to be a hero on the battlefield, she's willing to do the day-to-day mundane stuff, and that isn't talked about enough. Sometimes being a hero is dealing with being a mayor. Like, she's literally running New Asgard. She's doing the day-to-day civilian level stuff and fighting the big fight. She's a day-to-day hero and a big hero. She's a public figure of Asgard. She's doing sponsorship deals as a goddess. She's enduring all of this. And I don't know, the scenes where she's that beautiful side of the van art that was Ragnarok with her fighting, those displays, that heroism, being the last of her people, like being the last Valkyrie. I don't know. There's something about this character that really speaks to me, and I really want to see more of her. Tessa Thompson's Valkyrie is my top 10. She's my number 8. All right, coming in at number 7 is Vision. I actually had Vision at one point at number 3. Vision is a great character to me because not only is he worthy, he wields Mjolnir deftly and easily. Not only is he a character that could be one note, he's a synthezoid, he is an offspring, he's the idea of something, but he is the anti-Ultron in a positive way that is both literal and metaphorical, right? So Ultron is humanity gone awry. It's seeing the internet and seeing all the trauma we've caused and going like, nope, get rid of humanity. That's the only way to save the world. Vision is the opposite. He's the polar to that. We always need to believe in others. We always need to have hope, even when things go horribly wrong. White Vision is literally like a visual manifestation of that. I love this character that you have the opposite of Ultron, and they spin out of Iron Man, right? Like when Iron Man and Thor have a baby, it's this character. And between the Ship of Theseus conversation and between what he went through in WandaVision and his having to see Wanda go through all that and having to suffer and still trying to stay the rock he needed to be, try to stay centered, try to be there for her no matter what, but also trying to be a hero, seeing the horrible things she was doing. There's just so much depth in this character, and Paul Bettany brings so much heart to this synthezoid. I want a Vision show very bad. There's rumors that we're getting one. I think this is one of the most interesting, we could dissect this character for days. Choices, decisions, those are the same thing, Coy. But you know what I'm saying? Like, the way he sees the world is so fascinating. I love me some Vision. One of my favorite heroes in the MCU, and I don't feel like he's talked about enough. I don't see a lot of lists putting Vision at number 7, but that's where I believe he belongs. Vision. All right, we're into my top 6, and fittingly, my 6 is one of the OG 6 Avengers. We got Black Widow. Now, obviously, sacrifice has been discussed quite a bit in this. She dives off that cliffside, saving so many people, countless people, full sacrifice, very obvious, maybe the most obvious sacrifice. Her fighting Hawkeye puts Hawkeye very high on my list. But what keeps Black Widow this high is every movie, there's so many moments where Scarlett Johansson does little things that make her, to me, so much more interesting than sometimes she's written in the comic books. She wields sexuality as a positive. I think sex positivity is really important and something we don't really talk about a lot. I think it's really interesting that it's weaponized here, but it never demeans her. I don't love some of the storylines they introduced with her. They use that as a way to empower, not demean. Sometimes sexuality in comics is demeaning, straight up. But in this, Scarlett Johansson was able to make it empowering most of the time. Not all the time. Nobody's perfect. The writers and directors, and there are definitely shots and elements and everything else. But what Scarlett Johansson brought was an empowerment through sexuality, which I think is incredible. And I also think that she's never dumb. And I love when she plays naive but not dumb. And I love the relationship between her and Steve, them in the car in Winter Soldier is such a slept-on scene of dialogue. And her movie, what she does for all those women, the freeing of all those women. She was the only girl in the original Avengers. And we're working towards equality. We're working towards an amount of female heroes that is pissing off a lot of people because they're like, oh my God, MCU. She did this when it was her against the world. It was 5 white dudes and her, and I'm gonna get plenty of crap from this. I'm sure the fucking Todds and incels and what was that group in She-Hulk called are already in the comments, but there's something really empowering about being a woman just on your own in a team, and she did that for so many movies, and then she got her own movie after she died, and it was still a dope movie. I like the Black Widow movie. There's something really strong about Black Widow, and it's a human around gods, much like Hawkeye was, but she's a human around gods that has red on her ledger that she's public about. She owns it. It's on the front. She completely, I've done wrong. Let's go forward. I'm going to deal with that. That's my conscience. And there's something so heroic about that. Love Black Widow. Great character, great portrayal. All right, number 5. This is going to be a little brief as compared to the other top 5, but it's because I've talked about this dude quite a bit. If you've seen my No Way Home reviews, etc. Spider-Man. Tom Holland. Spider-Man's my number 5. Tom Holland ending his beautiful origin arc with 6 movies. Tom Holland becoming Spider-Man at the end of No Way Home. Tom Holland embodying with great power comes great responsibility. Tom Holland going through the loss of everything that makes him Spider-Man and doing it as a hero and mourning, and the shot of him in front of Jonah and him shouldering everyone being against him and it not making him a villain, him losing so much and it not turning him still being so wholesome and true, and but earning those emotions. Tom Holland's Spider-Man has dealt with the Vulture, that betrayal. He's dealt with so many father figures lost, right? You've got the Vulture as a kind of father figure, like a stepfather figure, the girl he loves or likes. It's high school, so you feel like love, but going through that in those amazing scenes. A big brother in Jake Gyllenhaal, that loss of trying to find someone. Tony Stark, another father figure, loss, then losing Aunt May. He's lost all sense of family. So he finds his own family in Ned and MJ, and then he has to let them go. He has to lose them by choice to save everyone. And it still doesn't make him cynical. It still doesn't make him a bad, for lack of a better term. He still wants to help people. And what does he do? He suits up. He loses everything. He loses the tech. He loses all the things that made it hard to identify with him as the Spider-Man, the street Spider-Man. And he makes a suit after his brothers. He makes a suit that's the blend of Tobey's and Andrew's, which is one of the great, like, oh my God, the universe led to this beautiful suit, and like, what are the chances that all the legal would line up and all the storylines would line up and all the multiverse would line up? We'd get this perfect suit that is a blend of these things, but it's because these are his brothers now. He's found his new family. He's found his brothers, and he wears it on his chest, literally. He wears his family on his chest, and that's Spider-Man. And there's something so special about this character and this take. I love him. He's a hero, man. He's Spider-Man, number 5. Coming in number 4, and yes, he is a part of the MCU now, and this might seem like cheating. People might be mad. And if you feel mad, just subtract the number from all the rest and discount this one. But I'm putting him in here because this is a character that is one of my favorite comic characters, and I think he's even better in the MCU, and that is hard to do. That is Daredevil. Daredevil, my God, do I love Daredevil. Daredevil is a character that is racked with guilt, that is always pushed to the limit. He uses what other people perceive as a handicap as a strength, which is something I think is so important, like I talked about with Thena. This is a character who is everything you want a real hero to be. Like, he's real. He does feel vengeance. He does want to hurt people. He does go through mistakes and trials and tribulations. I love how real he is. And then you get the She-Hulk portrayal. Daredevil is horny in all senses of the word, pun very much intended, and I love that they're not shying away from that. It's been a very, not a lot of boning in the MCU. They bring in Matt Murdock, who's got his share of notches on the bedpost, and I just love that they again, sex positivity is so important. So not only are we getting this incredible character that is nuanced and hilarious and incredibly versatile to use as a fighter, as an intellectual, as all these things, Matt Murdock in She-Hulk is exceptional. Daredevil in She-Hulk is exceptional. And you're not shortchanging our experience with Charlie Cox as the character of Netflix. We don't know what they're going to do macro. We don't know what Born Again is going to mean as far as continuity and those things. But right now, our experience of the character, there's no way those 3 seasons of the show are not part of our minds. So I'm including it for my headcanon, and that's why some people might discount this. Even if I'm only including that She-Hulk show, he'd be in the top 20. But I'm including that, so he's number 4. Everything I want in Matt Murdock is on screen. Everything I want in Daredevil's on screen. And arguably some of it's better than some of the Daredevil comics I've read. And Daredevil is one of the best written characters ever. The Bendis run, the Wade run, the current Zdarsky run, the Miller run. He's always exceptional, and he's still exceptional on screen. Charlie Cox brings one of the best performances, period, to TV. and now in She-Hulk, it doesn't alienate that performance. It only broadens it. That is so hard to do, to add, after 3 years of this dark version, to add a levity that still feels authentic, to add, so I love it. Also, even in the fighting, like the way the fighting styles, like he's making sure no one gets too hurt, but he's still a little bit more brutal. The way he's, trying to make sure everyone's actually in the wrong. He's using his law mind while fighting as Daredevil. The man is always on. He's a hero because he's always aware, literally, of everyone in the room, and he does what he has to, but he doesn't take shortcuts. I love what Daredevil does as a hero, and he puts people down a lot harder than other heroes, and I think sometimes that's what's necessary while still being inherently good. All right, number 3, we're into the top 3. Now, the big 3 I talked about earlier with the Avengers were Cap, Iron Man, and Thor. Spoiler alert, 2 of those 3 guys are left, but one of them, it's such an important character that was introduced in another movie, and that's always hard to do, to not get your own movie. So when his own movie was as exceptional, and his introduction was exceptional, and every bit of this character rang true to the actor and the portrayal, I got to give some love to Black Panther. Number 3 is Black Panther. Black Panther's introduced in Civil War, and he's immediately so much. We lose T'Chaka very quickly. We see T'Challa mourning, and he doesn't kill Baron Zemo. So immediately, hero. He's immediately fighting against all of his instincts, doing all those things. We see these fights with Winter Soldier, like some chase elements. That chase is so slept on, where they literally fight with a motorcycle, and we see the power of Black Panther, and realize that he's always holding back, and what it means to be a hero that's both, a public figure and a hero and a leader. Like, this is not only an Avenger, not only king, he's all these things at once. The amount of responsibility on your shoulders. And then to look at what Chadwick Boseman had to do while privately fighting cancer, the responsibility on his shoulders, play this character when days on set are not short, and it is not physical. It is most of the time, it's a long, hard day. And if your body's fighting itself, I can't even imagine. So I can't separate what Chadwick was fighting while this character work was so incredible. And then in Black Panther, to go even further, we have this incredible nuanced story of like what it means to be good. And this is a hero who listens to his villain. Killmonger had some points. The end of Black Panther is T'Challa being such a good leader that he listened to Killmonger and embodied a lot of what he had to say. He did open up a lot of the technology of the world. He did start sharing. He did open his doors. He didn't do it as a conqueror because he's not a bad guy, but he did it as an ambassador. He wanted the world to be better for Wakanda, even at cost sometimes. Such a hero, such a leader, both in the actor and the portrayal. Black Panther is somehow Batman and James Bond and, a Marvel hero. And he's all those things. And number 3, for a reason, Black Panther's such an incredible hero, such an incredible character, such an incredible portrayal. And another one that to me is elevated from a lot of the comics, because I do feel like what we got captured so much of the spirit in such a quick amount of time. Like, you can read decades of Black Panther and you can also watch these movies and you feel that beating heart of the character, and that's so hard to capture. Rest in peace to the late, great Chadwick Boseman, and holy crap, what a portrayal of Black Panther every time he showed up on screen. Even in What If, Star-Lord as T'Challa, that's a hero. Like, the way that someone else embodying that character and that versatility of character, like, there's just so much in this role. Top 2, you lovelies. Number 2, you gotta, what's left, but which one's it gonna be? Which side am I? Okay, so a lot of people think of me as a Captain America type, and I definitely love Captain America. And a lot of people see that as me, and it's always funny what people see as you versus how you see yourself. My number 2, I think, is how people perceive me and how I present myself, maybe, but I always feel like the number 1. My number 2 is Captain America. Captain America is such a hard character because he's such a Boy Scout. It's so easy to get this wrong. I think the reason is why it's so hard to write Superman is why it's so hard to write Captain America. He is so much more than the Spangles, and he is such a fixture of pop culture. He's literally the flag, and it's so easy to mix up patriotism and goodness, and that's why U.S. Agent's such a special character. Blind patriotism is dangerous, and I think it's really interesting how they navigated that, especially with Winter Soldier. The second movie of this guy's series, they just rip it all down, and they show, like, hey, don't blindly listen to others. These giant government entities are not necessarily your friends. Institutions can harm you. Blindly believing in institutions can be very dangerous. That's one of the lessons as you get older. You realize, like, you can't blindly trust these things as you're a kid. You're like, that's safe, that's good. It's not. And Captain America represents that to me now because of the movies. I didn't always get that from the comic books. Sometimes I did, certainly. This is probably the character that is most improved from the comics to me. The highest elevation. Because I don't read a lot of Cap comics. I do now, but I didn't. He is such a pure character without being boring or not true. He's authentic and pure, and that's hard. I believe in his decisions. I believe in what Captain America stands for, and I believe in looking at how to take care of your countrymen without blindly listening to your country. And I don't know, there's something like you follow a man like Steve Rogers, you follow a man like Chris Evans, and what's great is you look at the arc, and I described it earlier. I say selfless to more selfish. I think that's important. I think after a time you need to choose yourself, and you know, as we get older, there's only so much time, and you know, Cap is literally 100, right? So even if you're ageless and your body ages slower, you've still been fighting that fight. Even if you're frozen, I get it, there's time, but he's still been fighting a very long time. So there's something important about that lesson of like, sometimes you have to choose yourself. And I'm not saying selfish is a bad thing. I'm saying choosing yourself. He chose Bucky. He got to have his dance, and he deserved it. He fought long enough. He served his tours, and now he's time to not be a soldier. And I think that's really important for him to do as a character. And I think that's why he's my number 2, is it's important for the character to have that arc, and I think they landed it. And I would love to not see Steve Rogers come back. I know a lot of people want old man Rogers. I know a lot of people want to see some takes. I think a perfect arc is rare. It would be a sacrifice to see him back. Maybe Secret Wars as an alternate, but there's still no version of our head that's going to see Chris Evans and be like, no, that's another one. Bring him back as Human Torch, or not at all. It's a beautiful, perfect arc. It's a well-deserved retirement for a perfect character, and it's a character that I think is even better than the comics. Love Captain America number 2. Let's do number 1. There's one character left. You know it's going to be, but let's talk about it. My number 1 hero in the MCU is Iron Man. It's interesting. This is who I identify with when I watch these movies. I totally can see making a lot of decisions he make. I'm impulsive. I want to put a shield around my world. I love that this is he's so drastic that the Ultron thing comes from him. I think making mistakes is also part of being a hero. I love that he wants to put a shield around the world in Ultron, and then he ends up putting a shield around his world in Rescue, and his daughter and Tom, Peter Parker. He literally builds a shield around his world. War Machine, Rhodes, all of his people are encased in armor. He does what he can to do his mission. He sacrifices himself. The ultimate heroic move. He gives up his life. And this is a character we started with as a warmonger. This is a man profiting off war. This is a man profiting off missiles, that sees the harm in that grows from that. So few people go that direction. I feel like it's so much easier to get worse as a person than better. It's hard to look up to people that are real because they are real. They will make mistakes. It's also hard to idealize people. It's good to have heroes. It's good to look up to people, but not idealize them because they're still people. So many people that I look up to have made horrible decisions, and I don't look up to them anymore. Plenty, I still do, but there are examples. And I think it's really easy to lose empathy when you get to a certain point of wealth. I think it's easy to forget people, and that's hard. And Tony Stark went the other way. The more he grew, the more he opened his heart. Even when he didn't want to come back for Steve Rogers, you know, after he had a family and that cabin stuff, he came back. He knew what was at stake, and he still came back. He lived the dream and knew that if he went back in time, it might sacrifice everything, but he was still willing to save half the world. The ultimate sacrifice is willing to sacrifice your family. Even beyond that, he sacrificed himself. Not to mention, you know, the root of the MCU is Iron Man. The first 3 phases anyway. Tony Stark, Robert Downey Jr. is the way we got here. That first movie is still near perfect, still in my top 5. All these movies later, charm, charisma, intelligence, altruism, goodness without being boring. These things are very important in a hero to me. Apparently I have something against boredom, but I guess I do. The ultimate hero, and a comic character that was written as a challenge. Stan Lee wanted to make an unlikable character, and he did. And then Tony Stark is somehow such an enduring figure. I also think he represents Americana almost as much as Steve Rogers does. If you look at America, it's about like this American exceptionalism. It's about shininess. It's about being all you can be. And Steve is the flag, but, you know, the machinations of America is Iron Man, the shiny suit, the being bigger and larger than life. Steve goes home at the end of the night. Tony goes out to party. Like, America goes out and parties. So I think that America is represented in these 2 heroes, and I think that they're 2 sides of the same coin. And I think that's why the inverse of that arc works, the selfish to selfless. And I think America should look at Tony Stark. I think that there's something really beautiful in the arc of that character, and I love him very much, and he's who I identify with most, and he's my favorite hero in the MCU. Number 1 is Iron Man. We did it! 75 heroes. I am so tired. This is the longest I've ever filmed. This is literally a 3-hour shoot for one video. This is gonna do it for me. Please please leave a like, leave a comment. I did 75 of these. 5 were a second take. I'm going to totally own that. Usually these are all one take. 5 were a second take. I'm battling sickness, not COVID. I got an ear infection that spread to my nose and throat. My whole head is infected. I'm suffering, but I wanted to make sure I did this because I had a really fun time building this list up. So out of sympathy for my dying, please be nicer in the comments than you guys sometimes are. Normally, 90% of people are great. 10% that are mad are so angry, so angry. So maybe 5% of those people. Just lighten up a little. I appreciate each and every one of you, even the angry ones. Please leave a comment, like, subscribe, hit that notification bell, share this with your friends. Who's your top 75? List them. Or top 20. Just go crazy. Do whatever you want in the comments. I want to read them. I love seeing your opinions. If you strongly disagree, let me know. Strongly agree, let me know. Try to do it, with some kindness. That is going to do it. If there's anything else you guys want to see me rank, leave it in the comments below. I appreciate all y'all, and if I forgot stuff, I'm so sorry. 1, sick. 2, I didn't rewatch any movies before listing 75. That's 14 years of just me trying to remember why I love these characters. Luckily, I love these characters, and I love you. Thank you for being here, Reject Nation. That is going to do it. Okay, I'm going to go sleep. Good night. Bye. Be well. Stay safe. Happy holidays. Get some sleep. Okay. Hydrate. Call your mom.